Welcome back to Free Space News. Sorry, it's been a while since I've uploaded a new video. I had just kind of a weird week last week where I was just doing a lot at school, and then I would go out a lot with friends or do some sort of society thing after class, so I just never got around to it. And then this weekend I went to Frankfurt. Had to put that in there, but no, seriously, it was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed Germany. But anyway, let's get into this week's topic, which is going to be detailing the Green New Deal. It was announced by House Democrats, primarily Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There's an article from The Guardian that I think does a really good job of detailing what the deal actually is, what scientists say about climate change, and some more. So let's get right into it. So this is what the article says to start off. The proposal outlines the broad principles of a plan simultaneously to fight inequality and tackle climate change. It does not contain policy details or advocate for specific ways of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but with a broad brush, it aims to make the U.S. carbon neutral, net zero carbon emissions in 10 years. Now, I just want to put into context real quick how ambitious that is. So currently, there is only one truly carbon neutral country in the world, and that would be Bhutan, which is a very small country in the middle of Asia. Bhutan, interestingly enough, is actually carbon negative, and Costa Rica and New Zealand are very close to being carbon neutral, but aren't there yet. And there's 19 countries, including Denmark, the UK, Spain, Canada even, have teamed up to together go carbon neutral by 2050. And again, to put this in context, the Green New Deal is calling for going carbon neutral in 10 years, which is much more ambitious than even those European countries, along with Canada, have proposed. So when you're talking about a country like the United States, which has one of the highest carbon consumptions per capita of any country in the world, going carbon neutral in 10 years is an extremely ambitious thing to try and do. Hope that really put that into context. So the article has a few sections which ask specific questions about the policy in the article, or in the New Deal, and then just sort of answers what we know about it. So one of the questions they ask is, would it end the use of coal, oil, and natural gas? No. But it would aim to offset any remaining greenhouse gas pollutions with forests that absorb carbon dioxide, for example. Just to pause there, that goes back to the idea of being carbon neutral, meaning that any kind of carbon emissions that we're doing would be offset in some way. And again, to just add a little bit more context to this, you have to understand how big fossil fuels are in the American economy. The article talks about how fossil fuels are deeply embedded in the US economy. Of the total greenhouse gas emissions in 2016, 28% were from electricity, 28% were transportation, 22% were from industry, 11% were commercial and residential, and 9% were from agriculture. Now, I'm actually surprised that that 9%, or that the agriculture number is as low as 9%, given how much worse for the carbon footprint methane is as opposed to carbon dioxide. So given all of the livestock that exists in the agriculture industry, as well as other animals, all of the methane that actually contributes into the atmosphere is going to be much worse for the environment than any kind of carbon dioxide emissions would be. The article goes a little bit further. The energy shift would require a major investment, as would the social programs highlighted in the Green New Deal. The resolution does not suggest a source for that money. The politics of the plan are also difficult, with Republicans in control of the Senate and the White House vehemently opposed to it, and with some Democrats split over whether or not it is the right approach. So that last part is almost certainly true. I absolutely do not see Congress passing this or in any kind of form, and even if they did, there's no way that Donald Trump would sign it. And there's a good chance that a lot of the Democrats that are running for president right now wouldn't sign this, given how ambitious it is and how many centrists we have in the American political system as well. Again, the article isn't very specific about the nitty-gritty policy details of what it would actually take to bring the U.S. to carbon neutral by 2050 or in 10 years. It does have a few clear bullet-pointed goals that it's striving towards. Some of that includes building resiliency against climate change-related disasters, upgraded infrastructure, meeting power demand with clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources, expanding energy efficiency and access to power, working with farmers to cut emissions, overhaul the transportation sector with electric vehicles, public transportation, and high-speed rail, and removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere by bolstering forests. Now, that might sound specific, but all of that is very broad, like meeting power sources with clean, renewable, and net zero emission energy sources. Like, what would those sources be? How would we go about getting there? It's a very complicated process that isn't actually outlined by this. This is just a resolution. Also, this New Deal proposes social programs as well, such as universal health care, free access to higher education, and increased access to affordable housing. But I won't go too much into that just because I want to focus on the climate change aspect of this specific proposal. Now, when it comes to climate change, I would argue that the most important thing to do is to just listen to what the scientists actually say about it. And I don't just mean that climate change is real and that, 98% or something of the scientific community say that it's real and that humans are largely contributing to it, which is obviously true. But I'm more talking about in terms of who we should go to for advice on what to do with climate change. I would argue that the scientists are absolutely the people that we should go to when it comes to what goals we need to meet. And when you take a look at, and this article does mention that. So they say, quote, "The Earth has seen about 1 degree Celsius, or 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, of warming since industrialization. Scientists say limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius would require cutting man-made carbon levels by 45% by 2030, and reaching net zero around 2050. So just for more context, they use that 1.5% number because I believe if it's if warming is above 2 degrees Celsius, that's sort of like the breaking point of which there is no return. So the article points out that the goal is to have net zero by around 2050, and that's essentially what those European countries, along with Canada, are trying to do. So the European countries look like they're listening to the scientists, and they're going a little bit further than even the Paris Accords would suggest. Now, what do I think of this proposed New Deal? Like I said, I don't think it's going to pass. Obviously, I think that the Democrats simply don't have the votes in either the House or the Senate, and Trump would definitely veto it, and then even a future Democratic president might veto it. However, I do think it's the idea that Democrats are proposing this kind of shows the party is changing a little bit and is moving not only a little bit to the left, but they're also becoming more aggressive in their fighting tactics. For example, if you were to go into a negotiation and ask for cutting carbon emissions 75% by 2050, the actual result of what you're going to get in those negotiations is probably going to be somewhere in the middle of that. The party asking for the carbon emissions probably isn't going to get everything that they want, so the compromise is obviously going to be somewhere in the middle. Now, this deal for me might be even further than even I would be willing to go on the issue, just because it's so ambitious that it says that we need to go carbon neutral in 10 years. However, I think if that's the bar at negotiation and that's what is being asked for, the compromise is going to be somewhere in the middle, but now the middle can be maybe what those European countries are trying to do, which is achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, which again is what the scientific community says we need to do. So as a negotiation tactic, I think this is a great idea, and I'm really glad that Democrats in the House are talking about this. So that's going to do it for today's video. As always, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down in the comment section, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.